I spent most of my life outside politics, dealing with real problems.
A look at what many thought would be the 2012 presidential matchup, Obama versus Romney. That is, until Rick Perry crashed the party. And now the fight is on. But it's proceeding without a man who ruled out a 2012 run. Though there are still a lot of Republican heavyweights who wish that Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels would reconsider. I'll confess, I'm not a Republican, but in my view, he would have been the class of the GOP field and would have raised the level of debate in ways that are good for the country. Joining me now, the Republican governor of Indiana, Mitch Daniels. Welcome, Governor.
Matt, I'd say nice to see you, but I can't see you.
Well, I was hoping, Governor, that after that kind of groveling flattery from MSNBC, you might be moved to rethink. And if you want to make some news here, any chance you're still going to jump in?
I appreciate the invitation, but I think I better just stick to my assignment and answer your current affairs questions.
So tell me what you think of the GOP field so far. Are you a Romney man, a Perry man? Are you involved at all yet?
I'm not. I'm tending to the job I was hired to do by the people of Indiana. I'm watching, of course, with great interest and concern because I do think we need a major change in direction in national policy. I think we've got some good people running, some real good people, but I'm waiting to hear which of them really steps up candidly and specifically levels with Americans about the fix we're in and the things we can do to move out of it.
Well, let me ask you a question in that regard. We've got a soundbite I want to play from the last GOP debate where I think, as you know, there was a question about would folks accept, the candidates there on the dais, accept a budget deal that included $10 of spending cuts just for $1 of tax increase. Give a listen. I want to get your reaction.
I'm going to ask a question to everyone here on the stage. Say you had a deal. A real spending cuts deal, 10-to-1, as Byron said, spending cuts to tax increases. Speaker, you're already shaking your head. But who on this stage would walk away from that deal? When you raise your hand, if you feel so strongly about not raising taxes, you'd walk away on the 10-to-1 deal.
Now, Governor, what kind of courage is that from the Republican field? You know, Ronald Reagan, a president you worked for, raised taxes as part of deals with Democrats. The idea that the entire field would say a 10-to-1 deal was a non-starter seems preposterous.
Well, I don't know if it's a matter of courage. I mean, there'd be reasons to be very skeptical. I mean, this is a highly hypothetical question, Matt. As you know, the history of most such things is the tax cuts, the tax increases are certain and immediate. The spending cuts are imaginary and distant and usually never happen. So you have to make a huge assumption that such a deal would actually be on offer. But no, I think accepting the improbability of the hypothetical, we ought to agree that this problem is going to have to be solved, and nothing should be ruled out that might change the arithmetic of a debt burden that's going to crush the American economy and the American dream with it if we don't address it.
Now, that's a similar answer you gave when people would confront you when you were still flirting with the idea of a run to the Grover Norquist pledge. And I admired you a lot for saying the only pledge you should take is the one that you take, a president should take, is the one that they take on the steps of the Capitol when they're being sworn in. Why is it impossible for Republican primary candidates to be honest about the math? I mean, you know, we're going to double the number of seniors on Social Security and Medicare. Even if we do the stuff and beyond that Paul Ryan and others on the right are talking about on entitlements, we're going to have to see more revenue in an aging America. Yet we've got a GOP field that's kind of doomed by this by this kind of litmus test.
Yeah, I don't think it is impossible. I think it is entirely practical to talk not just to Republicans but Americans at large about the things that we ought to do. And I do hope at some stage people will be willing to be a little more frank. Listen, I could invert the point and tell you it's the exact same reason that Democrats who know much better continue to insist that the so-called entitlements programs just go on as they are. You know, that's those are the worst enemies of Social Security and Medicare, people who would leave them on autopilot until they implode, which is not that far off. You know, on this question of revenues, Matt, we are going to need a lot more revenue and a lot less spending, some combination of those two, to get out of this. The question, of course, is how do you generate that revenue? And higher tax rates won't do it. They'll fall far short of generating what the static computer predicts they will. the way to get more revenue, a lot of us believe, a lot of people in your party believe, is a restructured tax system that features far fewer loopholes and exemptions, lower rates on work and investment and so forth. And you know, those people who understandably say everyone ought to contribute to the solution of the debt problem, including the well-off, are looking in the wrong place when they look at higher rates. They ought to look at closing many of the so-called tax expenditures.
Now, but with all respect, Governor, and you know I'm a Democrat who's also supported entitlement reforms as well as tax increases to do the kind of fiscal fix that we need, but it's precisely because you've got both sides kind of locked into their kind of ideologies and litmus tests and interest groups on either side that a lot of people think we're going to need some kind of third political force to shake things up. Only got about 20 seconds left. Do you think there's actually going to be an independent candidate that emerges to try and fill what at least the polls say is a real void in the kind of extreme center that's frustrated with what's on offer on both sides when people feel they're getting, you know, they're getting a lot of flim-flam?
I'd be very, very surprised, and I think the best chance, frankly, for our republic is for the Republican Party to adopt a position that is full-throated for growth. It's the only place the revenue can come from, and is also very candid about what needs to be done to trim down our current spending, our future promises, and proposes ways to generate revenue within that aren't counterproductive by choking off the economy in the process.
Governor Mitch Daniels, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for taking the time and for joining me.